They say the Hoh Rainforest in Washington is one of the quietest places on Earth. But quiet doesn't begin to describe it. The air there doesn't just sit, it presses against you. Heavy. Watching. Listening. You can walk for miles beneath a canopy so thick it swallows the daylight, and realize you haven't heard a single sound. No birds. No wind. Not even your own footsteps. People describe it as peaceful, until they stay long enough to notice the truth. In the Hoh, the silence isn't peace, it's hunger. Hikers talk about the moment they first sense it, when every instinct screams that something is wrong. The forest feels alive, but not in the way a forest should. It's as if the trees are waiting. As if the moss-covered earth beneath your boots is holding its breath. And if you listen closely, if you really listen, you'll swear the silence itself is breathing with you. That's the moment most people turn back. But a few keep walking. And some of them are never heard from again. The Hoh Rainforest is ancient, not just in years but in something deeper. It feels primordial, like the world forgot to move forward here. Every inch of it breathes. The mist curls through the moss-draped trees, the air tastes wet and green, and yet, there's something missing. It's not that it's quiet, it's that the silence feels alive. It listens. It waits. And it swallows anything that tries to break it. Birds vanish mid-song, as if the air itself clamps shut around their chirps. Streams slide across stone without a single ripple of noise. Even your own boots seem to land in slow motion, soft, erased, like the forest refuses to acknowledge you exist. Locals have a name for it, the forest that eats sound. At first it sounds poetic, maybe even charming, until you realize it isn't a metaphor. For decades, people have gone missing inside that silence. Not tourists who wandered off trail, but people who knew the woods. A wildlife photographer in 1983. A pair of campers in 91. And in 1997, a park ranger, a man who'd spent 15 years patrolling the same trails, vanished while doing a routine perimeter check. They searched for weeks. No blood. No torn gear. No signs of a struggle. Just an empty stretch of trail and one unnerving note from the search team's final report. Unusual acoustic anomaly detected. No echoes. Sound itself didn't return. As if the forest took it and kept it. Ranger Daniel Cole was the last person to vanish inside the Hoh Rainforest, and to this day locals say the forest changed after he did. He wasn't reckless or inexperienced. Cole was the kind of ranger who carried the forest in his bones. 15 years on the job, mapping wildlife routes, recording migratory patterns, and hiking the places even the other rangers avoided. He used to joke that the Hoh was his second home, that it talked to him in its own quiet way. But in the months before he disappeared, something in his reports began to shift. He wrote about how the forest had grown too quiet. About hearing his own breathing echo back in strange rhythms. About feeling watched even when alone. On April 17, 1997, Cole set out on a solo patrol near the Old Visitors Trail, a part of the forest notorious for its dense canopy and thick, muffling moss. His final radio check-in started normal. He logged his coordinates, mentioned spotting elk tracks near the stream, and paused. Then came a faint tapping sound behind his voice, followed by a sudden break in tone. "Control," he said, "the woods are." The transmission dissolved into static. But over the interference, the recording captured something else. A low, resonant hum, deep, rhythmic, almost like a breath moving through a hollow trunk. Then a sharp click, and silence. When the rescue team arrived, the air was unnaturally still. The dogs refused to enter the deeper sections of the trail, whimpering, tails tucked, pressing against their handlers' legs. Veteran searchers said it felt like walking underwater. The deeper they went, the heavier the silence became, until they could hear their own heartbeats pounding in their skulls. One volunteer later told investigators she'd heard whispering, faint, almost childlike voices, circling her from the trees. But when she turned, it stopped. Instantly. The only sound that remained was that same low hum caught in Cole's final transmission, distant and pulsing, like the forest itself was exhaling. They never found his body. Only his field notebook, half buried between moss-covered roots, its pages soaked but legible. On the last page, written in a trembling hand, were 7 words that chilled everyone who read them. The forest doesn't echo anymore. It listens. Long before maps marked the Hoh Rainforest, before the trails, the ranger stations, or the word Washington ever existed, the people of the Quileute tribe already knew what slept beneath its canopy. They tell stories of a being older than memory, a spirit not of the earth or sky but of the space between them. They call it, the listener between worlds. According to their elders, it was born in the dawn of creation, when the first thunderstorm split the heavens open and poured sound into a silent world. The listener wandered the newborn forests, enchanted by every vibration of life. It found joy in the rustle of leaves, the laughter of children, the roar of rivers carving through stone. It listened and the world sang back. But harmony never lasts forever. When men came, carving paths, felling trees, shouting their presence into the heart of the woods, the listener grew restless. It wasn't anger that changed it, it was hunger. The Quileute say the spirit didn't strike with claws or teeth. It simply began to take back the music that once belonged to it. First the wind fell silent. Then the birds. Then the voices of those who dared to stay after dusk. By the time the forest went completely still, it was already too late. Elders warned that when the Hoh grows too quiet, when even your breath feels thick and swallowed, it means the listener has noticed you. It doesn't appear. It doesn't speak. It just listens and feeds. They say it hungers for the sounds it lost. The rhythm of a heart. The whisper of a voice calling for help. The final scream no one ever hears. And once it chooses you, the silence follows, forever. Scientists have their own explanation for the Hoh Rainforest's unsettling quiet. They call it acoustic absorption, a phenomenon where layers of moss, fern, and canopy trap every vibration before it can escape. In other words, the forest doesn't consume sound. It simply absorbs it. At least that's the official line. But in 2015, a small team of acoustic researchers visited the Hoh to study just how quiet it could get. They expected readings near 0 decibels, near perfect silence. What they found broke their instruments. Their sensors began to record negative decibel levels, a reading that shouldn't exist outside of a vacuum. Sound wasn't just being silenced, it was vanishing. As if the forest wasn't absorbing noise but taking it. Like something invisible was feeding. When the researchers played back their audio data, the recordings were corrupted, full of gaps, strange fluctuations, and faint patterns that didn't match any natural source. One file contained a low-frequency hum that pulsed in uneven intervals, almost like breathing. One of the researchers, Dr. Ana Perez, quit the project 2 weeks later. In her field journal, recovered after she left the study, she wrote a single, unnerving line. "The forest hummed my name back to me. But my recording caught nothing." Perez never spoke publicly about what happened. She moved away, changed her contact information, and refused all interviews. Her colleagues say she still wakes up at night, insisting she hears her name whispered in the moments before she falls asleep, followed by that same hum. Visitors still come to the Hoh Rainforest, drawn by its impossible beauty, a cathedral of green where every inch drips with life. But those who stay too long, who linger past the trails and into the deeper groves, say the beauty begins to feel aware. The silence there isn't empty. It waits. It's a quiet so complete that your heartbeat feels intrusive, your breathing almost disrespectful. And sometimes, just before dusk, a faint hum slips between the trees. It doesn't come from one direction. It moves. Low, patient, and alive, as though the forest itself is exhaling through the roots. Some hikers have tried to call out just to prove they're not imagining it. But they swear, the moment they open their mouths, no sound comes out. No echo, no voice, no scream. Just breath swallowed whole by the trees. Locals say the forest keeps what it takes. Every whisper, every laugh, every plea, stored somewhere deep in the moss, pulsing faintly beneath the earth. A memory of every sound that ever dared disturb the stillness. Maybe it's the forest protecting itself. Or maybe, it's the listener between worlds still hungry after all these centuries. Still waiting for the next sound brave enough to break the silence. So if you ever find yourself beneath those ancient, dripping branches, and the world goes perfectly, impossibly quiet, don't listen too closely. Because in the Hoh Rainforest, the silence doesn't just surround you. It watches. And once it hears you, it never forgets.